Uneven lighting is very common, even in brand new microscopes, and can be due to two main factors: a misaligned microscope lamp or artifacts in the system's optical path. Prior to any image analysis, we must ensure that illumination is perfectly uniform. To do this, we create a shading corrector for each objective. Too much light from the light source can make gray levels disappear completely. It is important to have the correct intensity before carrying out image analysis. The image on the left was taken with too much light from the light source. Some of the light gray levels will be lost. The image on the right has the correct light intensity. Notice that the peaks representing the gray levels are complete and well-rounded. Setting the target intensity to 80% of the bright area will allow the system to automatically adjust the exposure time so that the light intensity is at the correct level. This step must be carried out before and after shading correction and before auto-white balance. Color cameras need an additional correction prior to image analysis. When over a white surface, the image we see should be as close to white as possible. Often there is a slight yellow, green, blue or pink tint to the image before applying an auto-white balance. Here are the steps to optimize image quality. First, activate auto exposure. Next, activate auto white balance if you have a color camera. Next, activate auto exposure a second time. Then create a shading corrector. And finally, activate auto exposure a third time. Once you have done this for each objective, the system is optimized and ready for use with your samples. You won't need to repeat these steps every time you use the system. Here are the steps for optimizing your image in the software. First, make sure you're in focus. Next, go to a white or mirror surface. You can use the Climax micrometer for this. Next, open Video Input Parameters. In the Camera Control tab, perform an auto exposure at 80% of the bright area. In the Color Setup tab, perform an auto white balance. Return to the Camera Control tab and do an auto exposure at 80% again. You're now ready to create your shading corrector for this magnification. Notice the two static black spots in the image. They must be dust in the optical path. They will be removed once we have created the shading corrector. OK, select Create Shading Corrector in the Setup menu of the main window. Move the stage slightly in all four directions. Click on Done and click on the Auto Exposure button. This is the same as performing an auto exposure in the Video Input Setup box. It remembers the last settings you used to activate auto exposure. You can now perform the same steps for another objective. Go to a white area, open Video Input Parameters. In the Camera Control tab, do an auto exposure at 80% of the bright area. In the Color Setup tab, perform an auto white balance. Return to the Camera Control tab and do an auto exposure again. Select Create Shading Corrector in the Setup menu of the main window. Move the stage slightly in all four directions. Click on Done and click on the Auto Exposure button. Once you have done this for each objective, the system is optimized and ready for use with your samples.